Can you get a 504 accommodation for sensory processing disorder? Excuse the unprofessional look. I'm getting ready for bed, but like filming 24/7. Anyway, SPD, sensory processing disorder. Why might it be difficult to get a 504 accommodation or an IEP, individualized education plan, with an SPD diagnosis? For those who don't know, SPD, sensory processing disorder, it's a condition that affects basically how your brain processes sensory information, also known as stimuli. This can make things like interacting with high noise environments, interacting with different types of touches, very, very uncomfortable, overwhelming, almost causing outbursts or tantrums, which can be very challenging. So if a condition like this can be so problematic in school, why would it be hard to get an IEP under IDEA, or why would it be hard to get a 504 medical diagnostic accommodation for something like this? My friend, it is hard to get this accommodation because it is new. In fact, SPD is not specified in the DSM-5 or the ICD-10. These are basically the diagnostic manuals used by psychologists and psychiatrists to diagnose conditions. You see, these conditions, people, like learning specialists like myself, we know exactly what they are. We know exactly how to treat them. We know exactly how to work with students that have these conditions. The only thing is the medical field needs to be a little bit more thorough in actually giving out this diagnostic. These diagnostics aren't real yet. In other words, yes, a doctor can be like, they seem like to have some sensory processing issues, possibly sensory processing disorder. You're going to get the referral from the doctor to see somebody like an OT, occupational therapist, or somebody like me, a learning specialist that specializes working with different people with different types of processing disorders, such as this one. The only issue is there's no formal diagnosis for this. And because there is no formal diagnosis, you're going to get online results that look like this. Sensory processing disorder may or may not qualify somebody for a Section 504 accommodation. It may also be covered or may not be covered under IDEA, IDEA for an IEP or individualized education plan. If I had a student with a sensory processing disorder, which I do, but I can't give out names, I would definitely recommend you apply because you should always reach out for help when you need it. With that said, though, play the game. Sensory processing disorder usually means there's something else going on. Sensory processing disorder sometimes points to somebody being on the spectrum, somebody being on the autistic spectrum, somebody having a different type of medical condition such as ADHD, which is causing a sensitivity to external stimuli or a preference for peripheral stimuli. Again, it's not quite the same thing. Sensory processing disorder is its own thing, but if you can't actually get a sensory processing disorder, you may have an underlying condition that is causing similar symptoms, and you may be able to get that diagnosis. Like I said, though, if your heart is set on it, you can go ahead and apply under Section 504 for the American Disabilities Act. See if you can kind of get it. If you have a good application or a good learning specialist that knows how to fill out the application right, go for it. Also, you can apply to your school district for an IEP under IDEA, which is an individualized education plan. You may be able to get the right accommodations for something like sensory processing disorder, which is a real thing. It's just, I'm sorry, sometimes the medical field is not so up to date on diagnostics. Even though people like me, we're already trained in working with these kids, we have the headphones ready for you guys. We make sure not to touch you guys unless you guys are touched first. We know all the stops when it comes to sensory processing disorder. Occupational therapists know, learning specialists and education specialists like me know. We know what to do for you guys, and we're waiting to get the accommodation to say that we are allowed to work with you, but you do need documentation unless you're willing to pay for it out of your own pocket, which is also an option for some people. But if that's not an option for you, definitely apply for the accommodations. I hope this helps.